Hello everyone and welcome to our webinar, How to Scout the Dark Web and Why. My name is Massimiliano Brugnoli and I'm your moderator today. I work in Orange Cyber Defense as business developer and I'm excited to be hosting this session. Orange Cyber Defense is the division dedicated to support multinational enterprises in their cybersecurity strategy at 360 degrees. I am pleased to introduce today's speaker, Aurélie Perez, Senior Consultant at Orange Cyber Defense. Aurélie has over 17 years of experience in fighting cybercrime following her degree in computer science. She also holds several security certifications. She's worked at BT, Deloitte, and Lexi, the threat intelligence firm acquired by Orange. Before I hand the microphone over to Aurélie, I have a few housekeeping items to cover. Today's webinar will be available on demand after the live session, accessible through the same link you're using now. We have also added copies of their slide deck, Cyber Defense Dark Web checklist, and a link to our security blog post, all available through our Attachments tab at the bottom of your screen. Next, we would love to hear from you during today's presentation. We strongly encourage participation, and we are happy to take your questions. Please feel free to send them through the Ask a Question tab at the bottom of your player. We will answer a question at the end of the session. If we don't get to your question during today's webinar, please come back to us directly, and we'll be happy to answer. Last, we would like to encourage you to share today's webinar with your social networks. You can post this webinar directly on Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn, just by using the social sharing icons at the top right of your player. Please also take a moment to rate today's session using the voting button on your screen, so we can try to make future sessions as relevant as possible. So, without any further ado, let me welcome our cyber defense expert, Aurélie. Aurélie, over to you.
Hi. Welcome to all. Thanks to have joined the webinar. Today we'll talk about the dark web. To understand what is exactly hidden behind this word, what it is compared to the other webs. Also we'll talk about how to access the dark web and give information about specific data related to companies that could be made available, could be found in these dark places. And in the last topic, what support companies, customers could have in that case. So, Internet is the underlying system that is used to link interconnected computers and content. But there is different levels accessible into Internet. The first one is the common visible web. This is an information space known by everyone, or almost, where contents are identified by URLs, accessed with standard browser, Internet Explorer, Firefox, Chrome, Safari, etc., and where content could be accessed through non-URL apps now too, and or your favorite search engines such as Google. This is now one of the building blocks of our way of living and working too. This visible web represents only a small part of the whole information space. In fact, behind that, you will find the hidden part of the iceberg that is called deep web. This corresponds to dynamic links, pages, contextual pages that will propose content in regard to specific user requests. You have also an intentional non-indexed link. You have authenticated content, private web, restricted access pages such as the one with the CAPTCHA, etc. This represents the majority of the content that is available on Internet. It is mostly impossible to measure or to put estimates on the size of this deep web because the majority of the information is hidden, in fact, or locked inside databases. We can consider a figure close to 99% of the whole information space, but this is mere theory and suspicion than real calculation. And now let's talk about dark web. The dark web is a small part of the deep web, still in the same information space of Internet, but very small part. This dark web or dark webs are only accessed with specific software, configuration, or authorization. And one important point, even now these dark webs are used mainly for illegal activity or trade, as we'll see in the next slide, this implementation with specific software, configuration, etc. is legal. Now let's talk about what we can find on this dark web. When you first heard about dark web, it may have come that it was mainly about illegal activities where weapons and drugs could be bought for a bunch of bitcoins. Yes, you will find these narcotics, this weapon, extremism, porn, personal data stolen, etc. Exploit kits also. Yes, you will find that. In general, the difference is more about the availability of this specific information in regard to the clearnet. And there are people proposing, pretending a lot of things in dark web, and for some specific activities, they are not backed up with evidence. So this criminal content represents 45%, but the dark web is not only that. The dark web has been created at the beginning by reliable companies or institutions. I'm thinking about Human Rights Watch of the University of Cambridge too, and it was created to be used as an anonymous way of communicating for people that want to keep their communication confidential and trustable, and also to avoid censorship. So it includes analysts, journalists, whistleblowers, human rights activists, such as users of this dark web. And always it includes paranoids. So we have to de-demonize or undemonize the usage of the dark web in regards of the real content that you can find here, the real usage, and what you can hear in the media, in fact. So, with dark web, you will find an anonymous way of browsing or to avoid censorship. And yes, you will find dark content, specialized marketplaces and services for illegal activity. I will show some later in the next slide. And it is not only around IT. For example, you can subscribe to a cybercriminal call center service to specific voice calls that will be performed by multilingual resources, men or women, depending on the case, that are hired for this purpose specifically. And this specific service related to identity fraud, in fact, could be used or could be part of a more global attack scheme. If we talk about percentage, with the example of Tor 1 of the dark web, you will find mainly it's about narcotics for resale. Cannabis, ecstasy, cocaine-related products count about for 70% of wholesale according to study, the Carnegie Mellon University study. The second biggest marketplace is about fraud, hacking, exploit services. You also find weapons, that's true, porns, other categories such as extremism. But for this example, the extremism, this is not more than a clear net. What is it is there is more detailed documentation, but what can be done. And also, you will find stolen data records for sale. I'm thinking about the 200 million Yahoo user accounts posted for sale on the real deal, but you can find all types of stolen information, banking information, credit card, for example, online streaming credentials too now, or even full identity theft. You can find specific confidential or sensible documents also if we are talking about the industrial sectors. What is important to note is that there is each day more and more places created, sites created in this dark web. You can visit the Tor project metrics. This is the Tor project metric maintains statistics about the Tor dark web. And they observed that between 2015 and now, the number of .onion addresses have been multiplied by 2. It's real. To explain this trend, we have to understand that there is specific major events that could lead to use dark web addresses. For example, what we observed in the beginning of 2016, was a peak of .onion addresses creation, in fact. Suggested explanation were about low-key version, new low-key version, the ransomware that was using .onion addresses for COC communication, or another explanation that at the same time on the media there were the Panama Papers affair that requires a lot of .onion address to keep the information confidential. And what also that can be observed, but is not the most important creation way, is that for some traditional websites, there are alternative accessibility that are created through the dark web to provide redundancy, maybe, or to try to connect with all now their users too. And now we will talk about what are these dark webs and how it works. I mentioned earlier the Tor project. This is called Tor, or the Onion Router. This one is specifically focused on providing anonymous access to internet without, for example, revealing your IP address or your identity. You have also I2P, the Invisible Internet project that is specialized on providing anonymous access to a hosted website. And you have also Freenet that is more related to a document data storage specialized on publication of documents anonymously to fight against censorship. There are all three of them built for confidentiality anonymity purpose at the beginning. The infrastructure behind this net is easily accessible through your laptop, desktop, on all operating systems. For example, to access Tor, you will have to install only a specific browser, the Tor browser, that could be deployed on Windows or Unix system. You can also use specific distribution operating system, but you can just do it with the Tor browser. But these marketplaces, where I was talking about, where you can find illegal activity, illegal products, are mostly authentified, so you have to create an account. And for specific places, specific forum or marketplaces, users have to be sponsored, and there is also could be different levels accessible in regard to some conditions. For example, a user will have to provide proof or evidence of fraudulent acts, such as the defacement of a website, to access another level. And this user will have to demonstrate more and more to rise the top levels of this forum, while he will be considered as serious hacker, serious contact, and will be able to exchange or trade serious information or tools. Now, if we go quickly a bit deeper in how it works technically, different technology are involved in this dark web to provide the confidentiality anonymization. The first foundation is the usage of encryption of all data. This is the foundation for all dark webs. The main point also, the second main point I would say, is the usage of onion routing. Each packet that will be sent from one source to a destination that will transit into this dark web will contain different levels of encryption, such as the different layers of an onion, and will transit to a path, a circuit, established randomly based on the nodes available in this web. The packet is transmitted from peer to peer, and each node, each participant, will decrypt with its own key the part of the packet that is just necessary and that contains the routing information. This will allow the node to transmit the packet to the next peer. In that operational model, the node participating to a specific communication won't have access to the information that is contained in the packet, and won't even know the exit node or the source of the packet, the source of the communication. Another technology or type of technology that is involved in the dark web is the usage of random or not standard port tunneling also, and specific DNS resolution. You can see that Tor is using the domain name .onion, I2P uses I2P, and Finet uses crypto keys. Now I'll take, to illustrate a bit, the example of Tor and the onion routing. When Alice, you can see on the left side, wants to communicate to Bob on the right side, she will launch her Tor browser, and she will obtain automatically a list of Tor nodes. And when she will send something to Bob, a path will be created randomly with specific nodes available in this dark web. When she will communicate to another one, or after a certain amount of time, a new path will be created and will allow to use a new circuit. What we can say about this operational model, mainly the main objection that we can formulate, is that these networks are slow, mainly because of the onion routing and distributed storage. Also, some concepts could be a bit difficult to apprehend. I'm thinking of the keys in Freenet, for example. Also, we have to keep in mind that these networks are relatively young, in fact, in regard to all internet systems and the usage that we make about that. And the user feedback is not so good, and it's not bulletproof. It's not because you are accessing internet anonymously that you won't get malware or that will corrupt all the anonymity that you want to preserve. Attacks against Tor, for example, to de-anonymize the user is very active, a very active game for researchers from all backgrounds or institutions or even governments. There is a specific suspicion against organizations that could have found a way to compromise this anonymity. The Tor project itself welcomes only information about that. And I'm thinking about a recent media information about the dark web place called Playpen and the malware that have been developed for that. It seems developed by the FBI. And so this was built to break this anonymity. But this is just one reference. Here we took some screenshots of browsing into dark web. We wanted to avoid the demo effect with a live session on Tor because onion links are not so reliable, in fact. So first, to access Tor, I have to launch my Tor browser. Here I'm accessing google.nl. As mentioned earlier, the first motivation of this type of channel was the anonymization of the communication. If I do not want to be traced back when I'm searching, exploring content on my favorite search engine, I will use Tor to cover my trace and protect my identity that could be revealed only just my IP address. Here we can see the circuit that is created randomly to access the destination. It is possible to change it at any time, the circuit, or change the identity of the user. As mentioned earlier, you are able to access famous websites hosted in the ClearNet that have the same access with .onions addresses hosted on Tor. This is more true, in fact, for specific content. As Tor project was originally intended to avoid censorship and to protect web user anonymity, that's why specific websites and services are hosted in the visible web, such as WikiLeaks, that is also has its twin on Tor networks. This avoids censorship and also provides redundancy. Since we talk about censorship, we have seen also new actors that appeared on the dark web, such as the activists. Here I put an example of a forum that supports migrants and refugees and that communicates on police control at borders. I'm talking about European borders. Here is an example of a space that is used to facilitate communication to not be traced back. Everything is done to make it easier to keep anonymity and in fact to coordinate silently maybe the next cyber attack. This is an example. So I've just presented some screenshots about more ideological motivation website. But as mentioned earlier, you will have the fraudulent also usage of the dark web. Number of marketplaces and dark content websites exist. The Silk Road has been closed in 2013 and 2014 for the second version. Before that, you have the Freedom Hosting, and after that, you have Playpen Evolution, etc. And they are replaced very fast by new marketplaces and or dark content provider. And here we have an example of Alphabet between others. In Alphabet, you will be able to buy a lot of products. The major category that you will find is about drugs and chemicals that are overrepresented and that provide many different products. People will also be able to buy counterfeit products such as clothes, jewelry. You will find also weapons. You will find also exploit kit and malware obviously, and even free pizza. We can observe also numbers of confidential information for sale, such as credit card, login, password, all new identity information also, including social security number, passport number, etc. And if I'm thinking specifically of my customers or companies, you can find also specific content related to company. Here we have an example of a community that will exchange information to facilitate insider trading fraud. In the last slide, I've shown mainly about Tor websites. As mentioned earlier, you have other dark web. Here we have an example of Freenet. To access Freenet, you will have to install a software on your operating system. It will deploy repository and file locally into your system, and the access will be done through a common web browser or preferably through a Tor browser. Here we can see that to access content, Freenet will not use a standard URL, but a local content through the port. For the administration, the port is 8888, and to access forums, you will use the port 80. I have a sign here, 8080. Each user is a node in this network. Here we can see that the network is made of 100 more nodes, and some are disconnected. That means if I'm downloading content here from Freenet, the connection, the download will be a bit slow. Here you can see I'm accessing a forum, so by using the port 80, and Freenet proposes the same type of content, but what we think is that it's a bit less ergonomic in the usage compared to Tor, for example.
Okay, thank you, really. This is really great content. So what we have seen so far is really how dark web works and what we can find on it. And I can see that we can find very sensitive information that could cause damage to most types of businesses. So can you please help us to understand more as to why this is important to the business side?
Yes, of course. So, in brief, if we make a description of the anatomy of the dark web, we will observe a very organized community. You have marketplaces where a user can pick up from drugs to freelancer developing exploit kit. Darknet Start service has 28 marketplaces on Tor. You have operators that moderate communication and payment between buyer and supplier. You have escrow services also, and also even vendor user feedback to rate suppliers and buyers. You have a specific money, Bitcoin, that is used there, and even for some marketplaces, they also support multi-sig. This is a multi-signature feature that allows transaction in Bitcoin to be redeemed if some of the parties agree on its validity. And everything is done to keep your anonymity. So yes, you have to be part or to understand this specific subculture, as for example to understand of the way of communicating, the language, the slang, to be part of this dark web landscape. You have to understand also the specific concepts such as the Bitcoin to really have access to the content or to have access to the product to buy. But what we can see is how well organized and professional are these places now in their way of working or proposing services. If we take a step back, we can draw a parallel between the old economy, where companies had to manage all the production chain and were able to produce only what they were dedicated for at the beginning, versus the new economy, where people tend to outsource to specialists and to focus only on their own capabilities. And this is that the dark web could represent this new economy, new way of working, proposing specialists with a high level of professionalism. It's very well organized. Days where hackers work alone and access internationally or not military supercomputers such as in war games are very, very far. So now let's talk about the business risk. So between all these services and information available on the dark web, what are the real corresponding risks for a company? As mentioned earlier, people will find or be able to buy specific confidential information related to company. Databases such as BIN code list for the bank sector, credit card list, email list that could be used in phishing campaigns, still quite in the same sector, or it could be for industrial production receipt, building maps, etc. You will find also specific operational model guides to bypass control system, protection system, just a way to reach a specific target by purchasing the information or just in consultation, that's through documentation. As this information are already available, it could mean that it's a bit too late, but no. Company could leverage this information to be more proactive in the way of protecting their assets, their system, employee, even business, and to avoid the next fraud scheme with the next attack pattern. This is to change the asymmetry between hackers, means and materials, that's very, very professional now, and company knowledge of this. In reality, business risks do not dramatically change compared to the usage of internet in general, but companies have to adapt their approach, their security strategy to include this new way of sharing, dealing information in their threat landscape. And this observation is not going to improve in regards to the current and evolving threat landscape, as the cybercrime is very well organized, as we have seen, and accessible now. And as a driving force on the existing cybersecurity landscape that promotes to be more proactive is the digital transformation now mandatory for companies, and where new trend user requirements decrease the whole security of the information system by creating new breaches and new porosity in the security foundation. I'm thinking of the mobile, I'm thinking of public cloud, and this is also driven by the fact that digital assets, as they are taking more and more value. And as a driving force for customers to enhance their vision of the threat in the business content, where regulation are more and more important, I'm thinking of the GDPR in Europe, and where media are and public opinion could be impacted by a major brick leak case and now reach the board level of companies. I'm thinking of CEO dismissed following security breaches. So, what are the solutions? Suggested one is to include these new threats in the security approach of a company, and so to monitor what is being made available in terms of content on the dark web, for example. Document, databases, credentials, modus operandi, but also in terms of cybercriminal techniques and tools. To have positive results, there is some requirements to fulfill. Understand or to have appropriate the way of working. This specific subculture I was talking about, expertise related to dark web. It means to talk the same languages, both literally and figuratively, by leveraging undercover agents, we can say. Also, you have to understand the realistic threats against a customer environment and content, not to miss a major point in the qualification, and not to be fluid in regard of all content that is available. This is the work, the job of our cybercrime analysts to do the triage between the real information and the false positive. And also to mitigate when it is possible, and this is specifically addressed by the third communities. So, at Orange, that's the approach we took with our third services. We do leverage our big data technologies to gather massively information from all public and dark sources. We automate the extraction of customer-relevant information transparently. We qualified with our cybercrime analysts and experts, with information applies to specific context, customer context, and we produce real-time alerts to them. We propose also real-world recommendations to improve these problems, this incident, this security, in fact. And when it's not possible to gather automatically information, because we have to be honest, especially in the case of the dark web, it's not always possible to gather all information with tools. In that case, we do leverage our undercover analysts and experts to gather manually information related to customers. This process, applied by our third team, will make the transformation of the raw information, raw data, that is not evaluated, not aggregated, maybe not true, into something actionable, an actionable intelligence, contextualized, accurate, categorized in regard to specific customer-related risk matrix. It's very important to understand. Our main point is to adapt what we will find, the actionable intelligence, the threat intelligence, to the customer context. And so, this process of delivering targeted threat intelligence to customers will feed them. We provide them information. For example, fraudulent phishing sites or phishing patterns that target their brand, domain name cyber squatting, brand usurpation website, confidential information, sensible confidential that they own, that have leaked in the dark places or anywhere else, in fact, compromise exposed servers that will be defaced or be registered into public-private blacklists. Also, we can provide information on possible next attack communicated by activists on underground forum or specific communication channel. On targeted also malware that are made available to target a specific customer, etc. This qualified information will feed the risk management of customers, either at an operational level. For example, this could be new threat intelligence feed to update your CM strategy with phishing patterns or CNC IP addresses, or at a more executive level to feed cyber risk comprehension, calculation, fraud prevention to compliance management, and even sometimes HR decisions. Our services at Orange do not only provide this qualified information, in fact, to customers, but they will also assist the customer to threat mitigation through adapted and relevant countermeasures. I'm thinking of fraudulent website takedowns. We perform, like, I think I not have the exact figures for 2006, but it's around 20,000 takedowns per year. We also provide domain name suspension, publication, content removal, etc. This is the countermeasure that could be done in regards to this specific fraudulent external action. And we have to keep in mind that this specific third services that provide new type of threat intelligence to customers must be included into a more global surveillance ecosystem. And that's why at Orange we try to look a bit further, and so now, for example, we propose these third services, this targeted threat intelligence, into our standard SOC, cyber SOC services, to increase the level of detection, the view of all the threats that can be correlated to enhance the detection. This approach refers to the holistic security way of working that is built on several layers that we promote at Orange, with a security strategy based on multi-tiered approach. First, based on strong foundations, as everyone can understand, around security governance with a chief security officers, security strategy plan, roadmap, etc. Or based also on security awareness for employees. Second layer of the approach about reactive measure with identity and access management, endpoint protection, and field traditional perimeter security to keep the protection layer up to date and provide good hygiene, because protection starts to deal with the first line of defense. And this approach must be also based on proactive measure. Companies have to build now detection and response capabilities, because it's not a question of if, but it's a question of how and when you are going to be attacked. And there, companies could leverage this threat intelligence provided by third services so they can anticipate emerging threats and be prepared, better prepared. This threat intelligence also participates into the predictive approach, that is the last part of the pyramid, and participate to the continuous improvement of security as threat is evolving fast and adapting to countermeasures. I've almost finished this presentation, and to illustrate and to give some figures about Orange-related work on cybercrime, I have to list that we analyze more than 20,000 vulnerabilities each year. We have a base around 40,000, I think, and we analyze 150 malware samples each day, 1 million of new domain name each day. We analyze 50K malicious websites per day too. This is big figures. Some specific services are automated, some are more, as I mentioned, doing by our cybercrime analysts. We have an international presence with operational third team in France, Canada, and Singapore, and with SOC all around the world. As mentioned previously, we work vertically across all layers to offer a comprehensive security approach to our customers, deliver with our specialists, analysts, and cybersecurity experts for more than 700 customers. Now, thank you to have listened to this webinar. I hope that will help your understanding and of what the dark web and how it is related to company security strategies now. Max, over to you.
Thank you, Aurélie. Thanks. It is clear that threat intelligence is really important to the business, allow the business to really understand more about the potential action or malicious action that adversary could mount against a target. And I also understand that adversarial intelligence enables the business to take really better informed decision and act better focused to protect their assets. So this is really great information for our audience. I remind the audience that if you would like to have more information, please follow the document and the link in the attachment tab. So with that, I would like to open the floor to questions that I see already coming through. So let's jump on the first one. What I do if Orange finds out my data is on the dark web? This is the first question.
Okay. So this is a good question, thank you. So Orange, through the third services, can monitor leaked information, yes, on the dark web. Once we have one finding, the first step will to warn immediately the company, the customer that is targeted, and we will propose recommendation. For example, we will propose to change password as a recommendation when the leaked information is about employee credentials. This will permit customer, company, to enhance the protection in case of future attacks, and maybe be more prepared in case the leak goes public, avoid bad buzz or reputation damage. This service of dark web monitoring could provide either reactive preventive information. If I take another example where cybercriminals will use Tor to host phishing websites by usurping, copying their brand, it could be, from time to time, for example, to remove specific content of this phishing website. Does it okay for you?
That's a great answer. Thank you, Aurélie. So I guess this clarified question from our audience. So the second question is another very good question. As a company, should I focus on searching on the dark web or protecting my data from being stolen?
Okay. So what you want to know if I have to focus on the dark web or both? Because
yeah.
Okay.
So searching on dark web or protecting my data from, so should I be more in a detection phase or should I focus more on the prevention phase, like you mentioned also in the course of the presentation?
Okay. So both, we should thought at Orange that both are very important now in the way and with the current threat landscape and digital transformation I mentioned. Both are very important. Protecting your data to be stolen is part of the foundation. This is the basics and the reactive measure what we were talking about. The basic preventing way of securing your information. But as everybody knows, this is not a matter of being attacked. More to understand when, how, for what, and this should be part of the risk management of the security government. To be aware of what is available on the dark web, what is made available on the dark web, and even in the visible web, because this information could be both on dark web, visible web, depends, will enhance the view of companies from an external point of view, and in fact of the threat that they can encounter, the threat against their business and against their information system. Also, when this data is made available on Tor, it could be understood as a weak signal, red flag of a more global attack scheme. Depends. By the fact, when it goes to Tor, it means the industry, that the company, the specific customer, could be targeted. Also, as I mentioned previously, this type of specific surveillance of the dark web should be part of a more global surveillance ecosystem. This is not just about what I have to do, it is more global thinking of the security strategy. Today at Orange, we propose systematically, as mentioned, this specific surveillance into the cybersec services to gather targeted threat intel to improve detection scenarios that we can implement, what we can deploy for customers. It's okay?
Thank you, really, yes. Thank you very much. Yes, so layered security is as usual, a different layer, not one weapon to defend from a specific attack, but overall holistic approach is always the right way, I guess. So thanks for this. And the third question, it's more about geographic coverage. Question says, do you have dark web monitoring services in the US, which is my region, and how about Asia Pacific?
Okay, so as mentioned, we have global presence all around the world. We cover 24/7, but in fact, this is not the point. CERT cannot just consider such services, cannot just consider region or countries. This is more about the content that you can find, and that the dark web has not boundaries, in fact. So in our services at Orange, we do more focus on the language. So we have a multilingual team that is speaking, I think, close to 15 different languages to cover an international perimeter and to address not specifically regions, but all type of content. This is our approach, in fact, for this services.
Thank you, really.
This is okay for you?
I think it's clear, yes. The next question is, according to the recent Onion Scan statistics, the dark web is laughably small, with around 4,000 HTTP websites and 250 TLS endpoints. So it seems that some statistics show big portion of internet taken by the dark web. Other statistics say the opposite. What's your view? What's your perception on this?
Okay, so I'm not sure to have the right answer. I'm sorry, I'm not. I don't work for the Tor statistic, Tor metric projects, but it seems that indeed there is few websites. The exact number as the same for deep web. In fact, the exact number, the exact figures. It's hard to know, and maybe, in fact, as mentioned earlier, there is a problem reliability of this website, of availability, in fact. So some website can be unavailable when the check has been done or not for a few days, weeks, and be up after that. So I think today, maybe if we can check on the Tor project metrics, it's about 60,000 addresses, something like that. And we are maybe in a peak period, but I'm not sure that we have just only 4,000 HTTP websites, but maybe today, maybe now, just right now. This is quite impossible to answer, sorry.
Yeah, that's clear, but for sure we see a lot of activity, a lot of exploitation of this dark web platform for anonymous activity also against businesses. So definitely is abused, the dark web, for this illicit activity. So despite the numbers, is really used in any way, I guess. The next question, so we have a lot of questions coming through. We try to go through all of them if possible. So it's a bit convoluted, but it's an interesting question. So to what extent the dark web work on or assessing the potential of combining artificial intelligence, big data analytics, and machine learning to produce malware and malicious content on the fly, instead of relying on human hackers as currently. So nowadays, all the cyber weapons are developed manually, let's say, by human beings and hackers. Now, how the, let's say, cybercrime community is trying to leverage on machine learning, deep learning, artificial intelligence, and big data to build these cyber weapons automatically. Do you have any evidence or any rumors about this trend in the cybercrime community?
This is a really good question, in fact. As we said just previously, today is about like 60,000 websites on Tor, and when Loki was available, it pointed out that a lot of these addresses were used for that, and it increased the number of addresses. So it is certain that technology allows hackers to generate addresses, but it's quite in the same as the visible web, in fact, and that avoid the traditional web. But this was in 2016, and it's sure is going to be a real threat in the future. I agree, but we cannot divine. We are not divine. So, but this is for sure a tendency, a trend that we can observe.
I do agree with you, because as we see that the defensive community is adopting these artificial intelligence techniques, I imagine the opposite side will also leverage on those in the near future.
Exactly.
And the next question is as opposite: is it possible to automate the dark web threat monitoring? So on your side, do you automate a lot of your works and tasks?
Okay. So I understand the question. And in fact, I almost answered during the presentation. There are some tools. Even for crawling all the visible web and for the dark web, there are some tools available. And for competitors' reasons, we won't speak about it. We won't tell what are these tools. But one point is very important in this specific surveillance as mentioned. This is the analyst, the expert, the human expert job that is very important to qualify the information. You can have a lot of tools that will gather massively information, but there is some triage to make to avoid false positives, because we have like phishing cases. Like we have a lot of phishing cases every day for our customer. We just have to make a triage on that to just filter what is very relevant to customers and what is real behind the spam and the real phishing campaign, etc. I take an example of the phishing, but this could be anything else. And in fact, it's possible to automate data collection, but it's not the only way to gather information. And just to stop at automatically gather information through these tools will not permit the monitoring to go a bit deeper in specific communities, specific forums. And so as part of forums are blocked, and for automatic tools, cannot just be on tools. It has to be on human basis research or human basis activities, actions, in fact. I am clear?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Good.
So, in the same direction, I tried to summarize two questions that goes really hand in hand. So, how do I stop my employees using Tor from my enterprise perimeter, from inside the enterprise perimeter? And is there any security control, like firewalls or proxy, that could help to detect and automatically stop this traffic that I don't want to go out from my enterprise?
Okay. So the access to Tor is not available for all employees. Imagine you have a master for a laptop with a specific operating system configured for your employees. And this won't permit, for example, the download of the Tor browser. So this first point is to avoid that the user, the employee, could install anything on his desktop laptop. In that case, he even won't have the access to the Tor browser. This is the first part. After that, as I explained during the presentation, the Tor project use random ports, use specific encryption, and so won't have. It's necessary to have direct access to internet without filtering. Like if a company do not have a firewall at all, do not have filtering, maybe the employee that has successfully installed the Tor project will access to Tor. But if the employee has, even if he has installed the Tor browser, he just have to pass to pass the filtering element, filtering component of the company, such as the firewall, the parametric firewall, that will block this non-standard port. Normally should block, this non-standard port. So I may think that is today Tor project is very accessible from your home, from remotely from your home or from free Wi-Fi. But it's not so accessible from company as they have specific filtering policy, security policy that block this type of content. But it's really dependent of the security policy of the company.
Okay, thank you, Aurélie. So that's another great question here about bring your own device and mobile. So how do you foresee some new threats will grow on internet traffic on mobile? With the growth of internet traffic on mobile? What is this impact on the threat landscape? Will we increase the threat landscape due to this mobile usage increase?
You are talking about the mobile communication that are made on the web, or that will access that web? Sorry, could you repeat?
I guess that the increasing usage of mobile and smart devices will open, the attack surface to the potential attackers to target specifically end user that they can be used then to
understand.
To penetrate the enterprise once they are breached on their smartphone. So this bring your own device always opening the attack surface, and what can you do to help in this case?
In fact, it has to be treated such as a new threat, and that's why you can find today mobile device management components and tools to secure your mobile in a customer point of view, I may say. And yes, it is true. In fact, there is for all the exploit kit and malware that you can find on internet and in these dark places, a bunch of this malware are adapted and are developed for mobile and such as Android. And this is true that now this bringing new threat, and this bringing, if in a company customer point of view, this bring new threat and new behavior in the security posture that I have to have in the company. In fact, so yes, this is the usage of mobile, but this is not the only one. As mentioned, the digital transformation brings mobile, but bring also cloud, usage of cloud, and usage of new tools, requirements that are mandatory now, and that bring malware and new type of threats.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Orange Cyber Defense has the capability to monitor app stores for customer application that are
right. That's right.
Yeah, so I think it's possible. Part of the service is actually there's a component whereby it's analyzing the applications on that could be used by a customer, for example, a banking customer publishing their own banking application, and we can review this code to be free. To check if it's free from malicious behavior, right? This is a monitoring service that we offer.
Yeah, this is one service from the third service of Orange. We monitor rogue apps and on official store and also on rogue store too. Yeah, exactly. Okay. You're right.
Thank you, Aurélie. So another question. So if there is there is a way to perform an enforcement. If we find malicious behavior, how do we report it, and how do we escalate this after we found something bad going on?
Okay. So if a company finds something malicious, that is, could be a phishing pattern, this could be a malware, this could be anything. One relevant way to deal with that is to contact her CERT. The CERT private CERT, national CERT, whatever. CERT are the best partner to deal with this type of information. They have established communities, they have established communication with authorities, with police authorities too, and that in our case, this is the fact. In fact, we do have a lot of contacts to exchange information very confidentially, and also the CERT will help the customer to make a complaint to official authority. The malicious behavior will not be stopped in life, but it may come to trial and may come to help this to go to trial against the developer or the hoster, etc. So the first, I think the first reaction to do is to contact the CERT authorities, the CERT or authorities, and CERT have established channel communication that could help to address this problem.
Okay, thank you. I think we have time for one more question. We are almost to the hour. So there's an interesting question, say, we regard the techniques that you are promoting. So we have two actions. One is monitoring dark web for sensitive information against specific targets, and the other one is to have infiltrated agents in the underground forums to understand deeper the dark web inside out and see if anything wrong is going on against specific targets. So this is something, I guess, I can also confirm, yes, there are two ways doing this, monitoring and also infiltrating agents. Is that correct, Orly?
Yeah, you're right. You're totally right.
Yeah, and this part is pretty much is very valuable because it's not very easy to get into this forum. You need to gain trust and act properly, otherwise you'll be banned. So that's really something that specialists like Orange Cyber Defense have and can do and can support the customer in this type of activity.
Yes, you're right. This is why we have specific resources, cybercrime analysts that are experts in this type of infiltration, we can say.
So we are really a few seconds away. Thank you, Aurélie. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We did not answer to all your questions, but please come back to us directly, and we will try to answer as much as we can. I take the chance to remind that we will be hosting a new webinar on 5th of April around DDoS. I wish you everyone a great day or evening, and we are looking forward to have you on our future webinars. Thank you, everyone.